Welcome to On the Ground with Nadia O on the Life with Impact podcast. It is my privilege to welcome Dr. Lentsoane here in studio this morning, and we're going to be speaking about her book called Whose Child Must Die Before We Act with Conviction, a call to conscience for built environment professionals. And I'm just going to introduce her according to her own beautiful bio that she has put on her book. So she is a seasoned urban and regional planner with over 2 decades of experience driving spatial transformation across South Africa. As director of KRLN Consulting, she leads multidisciplinary initiatives in land use management, transportation planning, economic development, and strategic project delivery. Dr. Lentsoane is also a contributing author to Making Sense of Planning and Development for Post-Pandemic Cities, where she explored development incentives as growth factor for municipal planning, innovation, and service delivery. Now, this book, which she released March of this year, Whose Child Must Die Before We Act with Conviction, describes itself like this. This groundbreaking book is a piercing indictment of South Africa's and the global South's failure to protect children through the built environment. It exposes how poor planning, crumbling infrastructure, weak professional accountability, and political inertia are not mere oversights but moral failures with deadly consequences. From pit latrine drownings to preventable flood deaths, the book demands that built environment professionals, educators, and public officials confront their roles in shaping safe, dignified, child-centered spaces. Dr. Lentsoane, you're so welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
What drove you to write this book? Can you share, perhaps beyond just what drove you, instances that confronted your own heart for the well-being of children?
Nadia, for the past few years, we have witnessed children dying in different scenarios. Even to say scenarios, I don't think it's the right term, where children will drown in pit littering. They will drown in rivers trying to access education. Buildings will collapse while inside. And there's just so much devastating around children, how they die. And when you want to reflect, the professionals in the built environment, they cannot and they should not say it was not or they did not contribute to that devastation. Because when the infrastructure collapsed, it's because town planners, engineers, surveyors were part of it. So that's what made me write this book, to say, do we remember, or can we still remember why we chose this profession? Why do we exist? And if you also recall, this year there was death. One, it was in Omondi when the building collapsed and there were few workers that were there. And someone will say, but those are not children. Actually, they are children because they are someone else's child. So those are the things that made me pause, because when you are watching and you see a parent, you see a mother crying or having to receive a lifeless body in a bag, I mean, that is something else. So I wanted to remind our leaders, the community, the professionals in the built environment, to say we can do better. Yeah,
I want to drive that point home and say I can't imagine the absolute horror of finding your child drown in a toilet. And I don't know why this has become, why we read over the headlines and we just, empathetic, what's the word?
Yeah, right. There's no empathy.
Yeah, we just read over the headlines and there's like a disconnect between the horror that is taking place and the sense of responsibility felt. But what I appreciate about your book is that you don't put responsibility on the individual per se, the community member, the mother, the father, the average person that communities consist of. Yes, there is responsibility there, but that's not what your book is focused on. Your book is focused on the professionals who build the communities, who builds the infrastructures for schools and build public buildings and public spaces that our children have to navigate through. And it's, for example, if we think about the recycling processes, they often say don't use plastic, use paper, use glass, but then they make a glass thing so expensive. It's difficult to afford glass things, but also they provide food packaging in plastic. They give us plastic, and then we are blamed for the waste. But that's not what you are doing. You are saying let's put accountability and responsibility with the organizations, with the professionals who are shaping our communities. The question is how? How do we get organizations, professionals to consciously and morally approach how they build?
Nadia, we must care, love our environment enough and our children more than anything in this world. As you're asking this question, I'm reminded by a mother in a labor ward when the doctors will say, you know what, your pregnancy is a high risk, and if we deliver now, one of you might not survive. I'm yet to hear a story where a parent or a mother would have said, kill my baby, save me. Mothers, they will say, save the kids, save the kids. The father will say, but the mother will insist, save the kid. Why do you insist to have this child saved? It's that love, that care. And that's where I want to bring it home to the professionals, to our leaders, to the institutions in various sectors to say, let us remember, if you are not going to allow your child receive that type of an infrastructure, be kind enough not to want someone else's child to receive it, because that becomes something fundamentally wrong with you if you are going to expect such. So I'm speaking from the moral, because often we do have the technical skill, but if you have the technical skill and the moral fiber, somewhere along the line we have forgotten about it and or just died because of so many pressures sometimes we have. It's a problem, because at the end of the day, our children are dying, and we don't want to count those lifeless bodies. It is just horrible.
I am, however, wondering, I'm thinking about the fact that we don't all adhere to the same moral compass. And we do live in a post-Christian society. And we do understand that organizations, mainly whether it be government organizations or private organizations, they exist to make a profit, to make money, right? And then the question becomes, how do we, with approaching philosophically and morally organizations, I mean, isn't it impossible to make them care? How do we make organizations care about lives more than money? I would imagine that accountability and consequence would be a great tool. Keeping them accountable for if a child dies, then who can we take to court, right? Like if organizations faced the consequences of their projects, perhaps.
Nadia, you see, we have so many judgments that have been issued by the courts over the years about the rights of children, about what needs to happen. But if someone doesn't care, it is difficult to make that person care. If you don't get it, it is difficult to make you get it. And this book, as much as saying it is difficult, it is pleading. And that is why I said, if you can just put yourself in a position where you say, can I let my kid? If the answer is no, then you need to try and do it right from the heart that is pure and the heart that still wants to serve with dignity. You know, the tragedy of not caring is this: the children will grow in those hard situations and they will make it somehow in life, those who manage to make it in life. And there will be the nurses, there will be the caregivers. And someday the very same child you neglected will have to give you care in your days of need. And then we wonder, why do we have nurses who are heartless? Why do we have teachers who are very, very, very heartless and tough? We forget that actually their hearts were hardened when they were still young, because they cannot understand why you are there in hospital. Of course you are sick. They understand that you are sick. But you have all the money in the world. You're in a private hospital. And for whatever small pain, you are buzzing them. And they are busy with, and then they get to be irritated. We get to be surprised to say, what happened to this one? But the truth is, this child is still carrying the hurt from the past. They don't have the empathy to understand where you are today. And you have forgotten your role in the past as well. So this book, it says, whatever you're doing today, the Bible is so true. Whether we want to acknowledge it or we don't want to acknowledge it, what we sow, we reap. So we need to remember to say, if I'm given an opportunity to provide an infrastructure, let me do it so well, because one day I'm going to need the recipient of this infrastructure, because I'm not going to be able to be bodily able for the rest of my life. We have so many kids today in institutions, others they have been violated physically, others they are in drugs, some they are in jail. Some of them, it's because the system that we have created as professionals forced them there. When you look at spatial planning, for example, mothers, they are forced to wake up around 3 o'clock in the morning to take a bus to come to the areas of economic activities. They work, they go back home around 9, 8 p.m. During that time, from 3 a.m. until 9 p.m., who's taking care of the children? There is a gap there. And that's spatial planning, right? In other instances, the mothers or the fathers, they had to leave the rural areas. They are our sleep-in workers. For the 5 days, for the 2 weeks, for the month, the children, they don't have a supervision. So they have to learn to have the survival instinct to do what they can as children to survive as adults. Some they will get to be raped, some they will end up stealing because there is no food and they need food. And what do? We say bad children. Is it bad children or is it bad planning? So there are so many things that as professionals we need to understand that if I'm building a bridge today, it is accessibility. I'm promoting accessibility. That means I am taking you from point A to point B, and you should not look at it as physically walking from point A to point B, but look at it as from the physical, from the mental, from all angles to say this bridge, it's a bridge of life. And that's what I think we need to, because I always say you cannot decree competency. It doesn't matter if I fine you, if I put you to jail, if you don't care, if you're not competent, there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, what do we do about the government employing incompetent people?
I'm yet to hear someone during the interview who will tell you I'm incompetent. Take me. When you interview someone, they will tell you how beautiful they are and how willing they are and how they will do everything to make sure that the environment changes. Then 2 months, 3 months down the line, then that person disappears. And at times they don't disappear because they want to disappear. Sometimes they are welcome in an environment with people who are already disgruntled. And they are disgruntled because the system itself, the leaders and everyone else, they just felt helpless. The system is broken. And if you come as a new kid from a university or wherever you come from, and you're finding this supervisor who's already disgruntled, you are feeding that poison from that person. And at the end of the day, they don't know better. Because if you are new and you are feeding from something that is toxic, you will think the culture is that's how it is. When you go to Home Affairs or to any of those government departments, you see that we are served by young people. But their attitude most of the time is already toxic. Why is that? It's because they have found a system that is broken, they are feeding from it, and they're thinking it's normal. And it's not normal. So that is why this book, it's not about technical skills. It's that the morality that says, wake up, you cannot. We should not allow it. And that's where we are right now.
Yeah, I want to say two things. Two thoughts that come to mind is I think, though I agree with you fully that ultimately it's saying people who package our food in plastic, stop using plastic. If plastic is a problem, stop packaging my food in plastic, right? So if we're saying if development is a problem and access and security and safety is a problem, let's say, hey, people who are building our country, please, you need to be responsible and do the right thing. So that's one thing that I agree with you on. And at the same time, I do want to say that just because the system is broken doesn't mean that people have to be. We are all faced with choices in this world, right? The Bible says that people suppress the truth in unrighteousness. And so because I'm angry or because I am afraid or unhappy or whatever emotion, negative emotion necessarily, I feel does not give me the permission to be a toxic. So let's say you get two kinds of people, right? Let's talk about practically. Two kinds of people, maybe more, but two. Both, let's say John and James, grow up in the same kind of environment. Toxic parents, alcoholism, abuse.
Yeah.
John grows up to be toxic, drunk, and abusive. James decides, I'm going to live a completely different life. So what is the difference between these two people? They both come out of brokenness and damaged, but one, for some reason, decides, I'm going to let this make me better. And the other one says, I'm going to just propagate the same. You know, so, and I also want to mention that I think this is such an important conversation to have with Christians, because the church sometimes will take the position of neutrality, right? So we don't get too political, we don't get too activist kind. You know, let's just say the Holy of Holies frown upon the activists, right? Because they are disruptors. That's what an activist does. They are there to disrupt what has been, and it's not working. We need to disrupt that system. Okay, but the church says, no. Let's just bring all the people in, and we'll keep them nice and comfortable and warm, and just preach, pray and preach. But actually, I think that Jesus has a say about the safety of our children. Not just the safety, but the caring of our children, even our elderly.
Yes.
This is such a big problem. I don't know if you've picked up on the big issue around elderly people in our country. I'm honestly, some days I'm afraid to grow old in South Africa. What's going to become of us? And partly because we're growing up with such a desensitized culture. People have just become completely desensitized to suffering and pain and hurting, and so it's massive problems. But I think the voice of the church is essential, and the justice system is these two things.
Nadia, you see, you're touching something so profound here. Let me start by sharing my observation and my wish when I go to church and visiting other churches. And I hope it will be well acceptable. You go to the churches and you see mass churches, and people cry to the Lord, they're lifting their hands. And it's beautiful. You get to be revived. 2 weeks ago, a thought, sort of like a whisper, came to my ear, and I was like, these people who are in here crying to the Lord, singing, praising the Lord, they are the children of God, and they have children as well. And they are employed somewhere. And some of them, they are the business owners. And I can bet that 80% they're in the built environment. After church, when we all said amen, tomorrow these people, they will be in their offices doing something. Then something came into my heart and say, the person who was lifting the hand and praising God, if it's the very same person who approved that plan that became a result of the death, something is fundamentally wrong with the children of God. Then I was like, I wonder what God will say when we read about those woes, 7 woes of God, where Jesus got so upset with us, with leaders at that time, the Pharisees, the hypocrisy that comes with that. And I was like, if the churches can be actually where everything starts, after going home, going to your office, with that fire you heard from the church, I want to believe that kindness, the care, the commitment, the accountability will be there, because the church, it's a right place, the right foundation actually to take and put it out there. You don't need to come in the morning in a workplace and start worshiping, praying, preaching and everything. But your actions, they're the ones who need to set the foundation of heaven aside to say, we are serving by the children of God, and not in my name. Because when you understand the frustration when Jesus said, you hypocrites, it was exactly that. You are preaching salvation, but your actions are different. And how come I'm a town planner? Remember, when you are in the built environment, or even if you are in leadership or economic or ESCOM, wherever you are, we are not creators of this world. We are stewards of this world. Nothing that I do is new in this world, right? I did not create the darkness and the light and the mountain and the ocean. But for me, as the built environment, is to make sure that it's placemaking, to make sure that everything works well for good. That's my role. Town planning, it's placemaking. Make sure that everything works well for the good. And for the good of whom? The good of people. Right? So the moment in my action, I bring the imbalance, I have now placed myself, I'm God. I decide who will prosper, who will die, who will live, who will benefit, who. Now I'm no longer the steward, but I'm God. And if all of us, because when you go to these beautiful churches, I may not name them, but we all go to church. But our actions, my goodness, we need to say, am I honoring the Creator, the one who trusted me to be here? If you can say no, then we ought to change. Because this book, when you read from chapter 1, it does not preach, but it reminds you of why we are here and why we should be mindful of children. You touch on the vulnerability of our elders. For me, they are children at that stage. Earlier, we also talked about vulnerability, extending it even to the people with disability, right? We have that responsibility because we don't know what life will bring. And as people, we are sowing, we'll reap. So if you don't take care of children, you don't take care of the elderly, you don't take care of the physically disabled or mentally disabled, why are you here? What is your main purpose? Like, really, why are you here? So if we don't ask ourselves, why are we here? And I think we're going to get it wrong. We want profit, we want money, But at the end of the day, you'll have money, yes. But with that money, you will need other people. Because with that money in your house, with all the security that you might surround yourself, there will be thugs coming in to rob you. Who are the thugs? They're left behind. So the book is just trying to make us think hard, to know better, to remember, to care, and to government to recommit. You know, we need to reset. As a country, we need to reset.
I just don't know how we would do this. This is, when you speak, I mean, obviously what you're saying is inspiring, but it's immediately met in my mind with, how?
One step at a time. Let's start with the church. Let's start with our church, our foundation. As you go to church and you cry before the Lord and you bow before the Lord, get out tomorrow with the same fire. Let's start there. Let's start with your neighbor. When you have little to share still. No, when you see someone in need. But for me, what is fundamentally important is the fact that you see, as a professional, that means you get paid to bring a service. If you bring a service that is not on par, what are you? Are you a thief? What are you? It becomes so painful to see someone who will go to work 8 to 4:30 and do absolutely nothing.
That person is a thief.
Because government, or any employee for that matter, if they want to give you a grant, they will tell you, we are giving you a grant. If they want to give you a gift, they will tell you a gift. But if you go to work, you need to work. And you shouldn't just do your bare minimum. You must give it your all. And if you understand why you are there, you understand the purpose, how lucky we are to have Zodwa or Refilwe in this post. Because we chose you, Refilwe, out of thousands of candidates. You are so chosen and trusted with this position, and you spit on our face.
Yeah, in an ocean of unemployment, you are blessed beyond measure. And what do you do with that blessing? What do you do with that capacity and that opportunity that God has given you? Do you understand that you will be answering for that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because you were chosen. Like really, it's not because you were smart, even though sometimes we think we are smart. But you are chosen because there are so many people who are smarter than me. But I was chosen. And I'm taking that opportunity and I'm turning it into grave sites. It is so painful. It is just so heartbreaking. Nadia, there is something that I don't know if you have looked at it in this country. When there is massive death, either it was by drowning or there was a collapse of a building, our leaders will provide support for those families. And they will go as far as supporting them with arranging funerals. They will be in the funeral with all beautiful suits. They are just beautiful leaders who are going to say those speeches that we want to hear, comforting us. And in between, they will tell you this shouldn't have happened. My question is, that care for that week after the death to the burial, that week, the care that we show and the money we spend and the money we spend in arranging everything, it shows love. Was it not better if the same care, the same love, the same speeches, the same everything that is there was shown to prevent the death? Sometimes it seems as if we care more about the dead than the living, and that breaks my heart. In this book, there is a part where a child speaks to the living to say, excuse me, just put yourself in my shoes. I know that my shoes, they don't fit this outfit you're wearing, but just for a second, allow yourself to walk where I am and feel, maybe if you wear my situation, you'll start to think differently. I've seen our leaders, I've seen so many people going to these funerals and they will say beautiful things. And I ask, I'm like, I wouldn't be comfortable to do this if I know that this death was avoidable. I contributed directly or indirectly to it. Mm-hmm. So that's where we are with how we have neglected the love of our children. And I'm hoping that we can remember.
I have to be honest with you. If these leaders keep showing up to my community members' funerals, I wouldn't want them there. Because how many deaths will it take? It seems to me, hearing what you are saying, that they are just pacifying the community because they don't want outrage for the unnecessary deaths of children, grandparents, mothers, fathers. You know, the outrage and the outcry. No. Let's just keep them quiet by giving them a nice funeral and showing up and acting like we actually care. Yeah. Because if they did care, they wouldn't show up to the funeral. They would make lists of names and dates of the children who are dying in the communities, and they would use those lists to propel change within their industry if they truly cared. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like we're just pacifying the communities, making appearance, and which at the end, that's not love at all. That's manipulation.
Yeah. And that is why I said the words where we say, you hypocrites. You love these high places. And you forget what is in front of you. How people are suffering. Mm. So whose child must die before we act with conviction? It touches to the question now you're asking. It seems as if there is this child that must die, because surely the ones that they've died, it means they don't touch that place deep inside. Because after the burial, we move on until the next tragic event happens, and we do the same. We are not learning. So it seems as if there is that child that must die. So the question is, who? Will it be for the prominent leader? A pastor? President? Who? Yeah. Because definitely it's not going to be mine. Mine will be buried and forgotten. By me and forgotten, just like the other kids. So
yeah,
they need to care.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Jesus. So when Jesus came to earth, Israel wanted a political leader. They wanted a political influencer, someone that's going to make waves politically speaking, you know, challenge the Roman authorities and all that. They were waiting for their king on a white horse. Okay, here comes this non-event of a man. He's not anything special to look at, says the scripture. He was not made magnificent that people would even recognize, even pay any attention to him. He comes in and he, let's say very clearly, he does challenge political ideas, and he is involved in public discussions and dialogue. But his mission wasn't to transform the culture. It wasn't to transform the political, environment. But instead, he understood that if I change people's hearts, if I renew their thoughts and I send them out with that renewal, then they will do things like start educational centers. They will do things like take care of the needy. They will do things like, you know, create great environments for people to prosper in. And so there is the truth of the matter that says, hey, you know, how do we get a people to care again? Definitely we start with the gospel. God's good news has to go out, transform people's hearts, renew their minds, and heal our country with the blood of Jesus, and that's true. And at the same time, it's not an either-or discussion. It's a both-and conversation. We do that, yes, church, we do that. But also, we understand the mandate of stewardship. We understand the mandate of transformation. And so with the authority of Christ, we step into these arenas of political dialogue, of civil engineering, of the arts, and we bring the light. God says, you are the light and you are the salt. So you bring that transformation into those places. And that's not being political. That's being Christian. That's just being a Christian, so that's our hope, I think. And you can say what you think, how we understand hope from this point, like what should we hold on to. But I would just say, as we end this conversation, I think our hope is still, yes, it's both. We preach the gospel and we go out and shine the light of Christ. If you've been given a job, you go there and you are the hands and feet of God in that place.
I fully agree with you, Nadia. That is why I say when you look at what happens inside the churches, how you see children of God cry, kneel, worship. And if we take the very same energy, that same heart, with the understanding of the heart of our Creator, and we take it out there, we are going to change the world. Because when Jesus came, he did not just change the world just like that, but it was one person. You go there, show this, show up, show care. And if we can do that and to remember who we are, I still maintain that sense of human being to want to play God, it is a dangerous one, because we're never placed in this world to be God. We cannot be the one who decide who lives, who die, and how you live and how you die. Placemaking, it's about equality, it's about equity, is to serving God without even you having to say, I'm a Christian, but your actions, they need to speak that. Because what's the point of you keep on saying, I'm a Christian, I'm a child of God, this is what I do, carry the Bible, worship, but if your actions, they bring death, we need to change. And I'm hoping that when people read this book, they will feel something inside that will say, let me look at how my business model, how I have been donating, how I've been funding. Because then with your money, you can say, I am going to donate, but these are the terms of reference. I'm going to share what I've made, my profit. For example, if you look at those companies who will donate funds to other organizations, they will say, my 1%, I'm going to give it to you, provided you satisfy 1, 2, 3, 4. And they need to go back and see if honestly those people they have done. Don't just say, I need to issue the 1% of my profit for tax purposes. Let's do that to bring life, to bring hope. And that's what I'm appealing to say, let's do everything that we do with a purpose to show love, to change. Because if we change, the world will change. Thank you so much.
Yes, amen. Well, I look forward to being with you again next week. It's been a great conversation. I want to encourage you to go out and buy this book. Where can they purchase? Which outlets?
Exclusive books they do have, and also the publisher there, Zamuputi, they do have. But if they go to exclusive books, I think that's where they will be able to get it faster.
Okay, beautiful. There you have it. That's exclusive books. It's not expensive, so it's a great idea. If you've ever wanted to be a voice of influence in your sphere of impact where you move about, perhaps start here. If you are a builder or someone that's involved with civil engineering and all that, it just takes one move of God in your heart, just a thought, to bring transformation. And so let this book be that voice that perhaps catapults you into being a voice for the voiceless in our society. Thank you so much, and I look forward to being with you again next week.